Very good morning to all our members based out of India, and very good afternoon to all the members based out of Japan and other places in East Asia. It is indeed a pleasure to have you all as part of the CII's CEO Speak series on bilateral economic cooperation between India and Japan, being organized as part of the 70-year celebrations of India-Japan diplomatic relations. This event or these sessions are being organized jointly and with the support of Embassy of India, Tokyo. This particular session is actually focusing on enhancing collaboration between India and Japan in healthcare and pharma, COVID and beyond. I think just the appropriate topic when we are now seeing a slight surge in COVID cases here in Delhi, at least. The numbers are on a rise, but I hopefully it will not. With these kind of collaborations, I am sure it will be able to tackle them at ease. Without making much of a time, I would like to first introduce you to the various guests. We have Ms. Muna Khandhar, Minister Economic and Commerce, Embassy of India, Tokyo. Thank you, Madam, for joining. We have the two key speakers, Mr. Ichiro Fujikawa, the CEO of Fujikawa and Company, and Mr. Deepak Sapra, who's the CEO, APIs and Services, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. But to take this forward, we have Dr. Rajesh Jain. He is the Chairman of the CII Biotechnology Committee and also the Managing Director of Panacea Biotec. The company doesn't need much of an introduction. And Mr. Dr. Jain himself is also a stalwart in this particular sector. But as a formality, let me also just briefly introduce him. And so just to give you a background of him. Dr. Rajesh Jain actually serves as I mentioned, he is the Managing Director of Panacea Biotec, and he's also the Chairman of the CII Biotechnology Committee. He is one of the leading members and leading industrialist, leading person who has a strategic visionary leadership in the area of innovation and business development in this sector, and is a well-respected person in Indian pharmaceutical and biotechnology sector. He has been awarded with various on innovation awards, and with 31 granted patents and 33 under prosecution in the field of vaccines, drug discovery, drug delivery, etc. You can very well understand his focus as a company and his individual focus on how he really gives focus, gives importance to this particular sector. Utilizing outstanding analytical skills and exceptional knowledge of science, he fortifies policies and strategies that contribute to the company's overall record of success and maintain its superlative legacy of excellence. With these brief words, I would like to hand over to Dr. Jain, who will be chairing and moderating this particular session. And without much ado, once again, thank you very much for joining this particular session. We already see close to 100 people already joined. We are expecting more to join as we see. Thank you once again. And Dr. Jain, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, EB, for this nice introduction for me as well as for all the distinguished speakers that are there on the panel today. So it's indeed my great pleasure and honor to welcome you all to this second edition of the India-Japan CEO Speak series on bilateral economic cooperation, which focuses on enhancing the collaboration between India and Japan in specifically healthcare, as well as pharma, which is COVID and beyond. This series is being organized by CII with the support of Embassy of India, Tokyo, as part of the whole 70th anniversary India and Japan diplomatic relations, with an aim to share the successful collaboration between the two countries in very specific sectors and potential for any future cooperation that these two countries will potentially have Thereby, the aim is to increase the mutual trade and investments in both the countries. We are all very privileged today to have the presence of Miss Mona Khandhar, who has been playing a very important role in enhancing the economic engagement, which has been a keen proponent of India-Japan bilateral ties. Fujikawa-san and Mr. Deepak Sapra from Dr. Reddy Laboratories, they are leading manufacturing companies from India and Japan in healthcare, pharmaceuticals, and API sectors. I thank you all and both of you for being part of this program to share your valuable business partnerships in this sector. We are all aware that our two nations, they enjoy a special strategic and global partnership and have come together on many global platforms for collaborative efforts on global challenges. And as we complete our 70 years of India's diplomatic engagement with Japan, the economic component of this relationship has shown tremendous dynamism and has emerged as a very strong pole of this partnership. The two countries have been, forging a transformative collaboration, which has expanded the whole scope of bilateral relationships significantly. And India's demographic dividend and Japan's, especially the capital and technological, foundation, has realized the true potential of India-Japan economic partnership for our, future. The visit of Honorable Prime Minister Kishida to India last month reaffirms the salience of this close economic and strategic ties between India and Japan. And there has been a tremendous growth in economic cooperation between the two countries. And when we look at the bilateral economic relations, they have been very close and we have enjoyed warm friendship. And when we look at actually what is the business that has transpired, it's close to, I guess, $15.3 billion that the two countries actually stand at. In 2021, Japan is the third largest investor in India, and this is not a very small position. And from FDI from Japan, they alone accounted for close to $36.5 billion until March of last year. We truly believe that Japanese companies will find India a very vibrant and rapidly growing market, a facilitative investment climate, and almost now a very wide range and multiple sectors for investments. They would also benefit from a very competitive, high quality, and wide spectrum of products that can be sourced from India. And when we talk about quality, I think I'll refer to this particular part of India a little later with respect to some of the companies, Japanese companies who came to India, produced products here, took them back to Japan. What has been their experience? I had the opportunity of doing some research and getting in touch with some of them, and how both countries can really now work together to take it to the next level. And for CII, specifically when we look at our relationship with Japan, has always been very special and unique. We deeply at CII value the guidance and support of the Japanese government across many dimensions of our interactions with the Japanese industry and various institutions. Under the Japan-India Business Leader Forum, our recommendations and inputs have actually contributed in building a better bilateral trade and investment climate. And to specifically point out, CII recently, organized the Japan Economic Forum during the recent visit of our Honorable Prime Minister Kishida to India of Japan, which there the aim was to provide a platform to showcase the investment and business opportunities in India, and Japan to embark on a new paradigm of cooperation and partnerships. So CII has also been very active in strategic dialogues with Japan, including India, Japan, US strategic dialogue and track 2 dialogues in specific terms. On the industry side, CII quality movement has emerged as an exemplar of economic partnership with a nation. And of course, I do agree that there's a long way to go, but there has been a rapid progress in this direction. Inspired by the Japanese business practices, which are among the best in the world today, CII pioneered a strong quality movement in Indian industry, and we really want to take advantage of that. And if you see, there are so many companies from India which export to Europe and US, but very few to Japan. So the question is why? And probably their quality and the culture that India has would come into focus. And I think somewhere down the line, I would want to really delve more deeper into it. And I hope that this session, though virtual, we wanted to have that one-on-one, but not possible due to the COVID times, would really contribute towards strengthening the engagement between the business communities from the two countries. That's the whole aim with which we come and have this, second CEO's session today. With this background, I will now request Ms. Mona, our Minister for Economic and Commerce from the Embassy of India, Tokyo, to deliver her address, and would like to actually specifically thank on my behalf as well as the team at CII, especially thanks to her in which, she helped us a lot in organizing this program, putting together this program. And Madam, with your support and guidance, we are pretty sure that this will go a long way in bringing together the businesses of both the countries with greater collaboration and for mutual benefit. Thank you, Madam, and over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Rajesh Jain, for such a kind words. And thank you once again to CII for organizing this fireside chat series at a very opportune time. So this year, we all in India and Japan celebrating 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations. This occasion also coincides with 75th year of India's independence. So to commemorate both, CII and Embassy of India, Tokyo are organizing India-Japan CEO Speak series with Indian and Japanese CEOs with the objective to share the successful bilateral sectoral collaboration and to explore new partnerships for promoting mutual trade and investment, technology transfer and innovations to realize the emerging opportunities. So today we have the second fireside chat in the series on the theme Enhancing Collaboration between India and Japan in Healthcare and Pharma, COVID and beyond. It's a privilege to have Mr. Ichiro Fujikawa, CEO Fujikawa and Company Limited from Japan, and Mr. Deepak Sapra, CEO APIs and Services, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories Limited from India, and Mr. Rajesh Jain, MD, Panacea Biotec Limited, to moderate the session. I extend a very warm welcome to all three of you and all the participants joining us. So the troubled time on account of COVID-19 global pandemic is becoming increasingly complex due to emerging geopolitical situation due to Russia's invasion on Ukraine and economic challenges of overall adverse impact on the economy, consumption, supply constraint, inflation, along with climate change and energy related issues. COVID-19 global pandemic exposed the problems of over-dependence on any particular geography. And initially, there were even issues with securing basic healthcare related to supplies needed for managing COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, economic security and supply chain resilience, especially in critical sectors like pharma and healthcare, have become very important. So let me begin with a quick overview of national and bilateral development in this sector. Government of India has taken important policy initiatives in this regard for promoting bulk drug parks with financial support up to rupees 10 billion and rupees 4 billion has been earmarked for medical devices park with up to rupees 1 billion per park. In addition, 5% incentive on incremental sale of target categories of pharmaceuticals and medical devices has been provided for which rupees 34 billion has been earmarked. For 34 billion earmarked for medical devices and rupees 70 billion earmarked for pharmaceutical sectors. And tenure of this scheme will be from financial year 21 to financial year 29. And there are 3 categories of products that are eligible under this program. Government of India has also, in addition to Government of India, we have seen that in Japan also, or rather Japan was the first country to announce financial support for diversification of supply chain across critical sectors, including healthcare and pharma for Japanese companies. With this, there is also trilateral supply chain resilience initiative between India, Japan, and Australia. And a recent announcement of Japanese investment of 5 trillion Japanese yen during the PM level summit held on 19th March 2022. We expect a close business to business collaboration next on the card on the strength of very strong government to government cooperation, and especially more so in this critical sector, and especially when COVID-19 pandemic waves after waves are still continuing. And let me go a little further in a recent past, that in June 2017, Government of Japan officially set the target rate of generic drug use at 80% by September 2020, and introduced financial incentives and national health insurance scheme for this purpose, such as additional reimbursement to physicians, incentives for hospitals, clinics, and pharmacies for higher achievement, also along with penalties for lower achievement. So they have shown such a commitment to this increasing use of generics, which is very positive for Indian pharma companies. Now, India has achieved a good strength in this sector over a period of time, and India exports vaccines and biopharma products to more than 200 countries, and over 55% of these exports go to highly regulated market, which are very, very quality conscious. Now, in case of APIs, also India ranks 3rd and manufactures more than 500 APIs. And 90% of WHO pre-qualified APIs are sourced from India. 8 out of 20 global generic companies are from India. And 65 to 70% of WHO's vaccine requirements are sourced from India. And of course, we have 2nd highest US FDA approved facilities. So these are all strength, and more than 75% of India's pharma exports consist of drug formulations and biologicals. And if we look at also broadly at the healthcare sector, the treatment cost of life-threatening disease in India is 95% lower. This sector earns about 10 billion USD of trade surplus for India. So for the economy also, it's very, very important, and provides employment to about 2.7 million people. And it is growing at 10 to 12% at the annual growth rate of 10 to 12%. But Japan is not among top 10 destinations, even though Japan is a very big importer of APIs and pharmaceuticals. And out of the total exports of 24.5 billion USD from India, Japan's share was only 236.1 million USD in FY21, which is less than 1%. And over 50% of Japan's generic drugs depend upon imported APIs. And in value terms, the top exporters of API to Japan are South Korea, China, India, and Italy. Now, Japan is a highly quality conscious market, and India has several collaborations for regulations of pharmaceuticals and medical devices to share information such as good manufacturing practices and pharmacovigilance and information like this. And India has entered into MOUs with 11 countries, which also includes Japan in addition to USA and UK. And India is in process of entering into MOUs with several other countries. These are all into regulatory aspect. And recently, the new medical devices rule 2017 of India have broadened the definition of drugs, and it is also in sync with ISO 13485 so far as qualities are concerned. And similarly, new drugs and clinical trial rules have come into effect on 19th March 2019, has again included phytopharmaceuticals, living modified organisms, monoclonal antibody, stem cell delivered product, and gene therapeutic product, things like this under the definition of drug. And there are provision for accelerated approval and also other provisions related to quality management and risk management. And accordingly, Schedule M has also been upgraded. Now we have a regulatory symposium between PMDA and CDCSO of India, which is very, very robust and regular. And very recently in December, we had a 5th such symposium. And we have been organizing specific roundtable for Indian pharma companies with PMDA of Japan. And generally the issues faced by Indian pharma companies in Japan are like selection of in-country caretaker, triplicate analysis, timeline for pre-consultation or post or consultation. These all have been brought to the notice of PMDA, and PMDA is responding very positively. But one very important thing that Indian companies need to note is that Japanese importers, traders, and consumers, they are more comfortable if Indian pharma companies have Japanese associates. Now, Japanese trade, Japanese business has a specific culture. They have no specific kind of framework, and it depends a lot on trust. They believe in long-term relations. So, no, they feel more confident when they are dealing with somebody who is aware about all these practices. So it really helps if Indian companies have Japanese associates that they have, which have reputation and which are reliable for Japanese market. And I'm sure when Japanese companies come to India, they do the same thing. Actually, they begin with joint venture. So I think if Indian companies consider this particular aspect, we can have a very, very fast, B2B relation development. So I would definitely like the two CEOs to talk more on this so that we can further promote B2B collaboration. But one very important thing is that COVID-19 pandemic has also brought out the significance of digitalization, IT application, startup, and innovation in healthcare sector especially. Now, healthcare startups and innovations are very prominent in India-Japan digital collaboration. We have a very active India-Japan digital collaboration as well. And in 2021, we had a dedicated session where 10 Indian healthcare startups pitched to Japanese investors, and it was very successful. And the program for digital transformation has been specifically launched by government of Japan in post-COVID kind of strategies, economic strategies, and digitalization strategies. So that is also very important. And under this program, government of Japan extend financial assistance to Japanese companies that are working on forging a collaboration with Indian companies to roll out a new business idea or startup or innovation. So in this also healthcare and is very, very important. So I think this is also a very important way forward, considering the constraints that India has, especially in rural area, such as no access to healthcare or bed to patient ratio, availability of doctors and nurses. So this may be a way forward. And with the invent of 5G, we are seeing use case development also in this area. So this can be a very important sector. So with all this, I look forward to a very engaging and insightful session with three CEOs and very eminent participants from both the sides. Thank you very much. Once again, I thank CII for organizing this and all the prominent and eminent panelists that we have today with us. Thank you very much. Arigato gozaimasu. Namaste. Dhanyavad.
Dr. Jain, you are on mute. Dr. Jain, you are on mute.
Yeah. So, thank you, Ms. Khandhar, for your very informative address and sharing not only a lot of current information on India-Japan, climate relations and the opportunities, but also how economic cooperation between India and Japan can help. I would like to, before I invite, Mr. Fujikawa as my next, guest to talk about, and how do we enhance collaboration between India and Japan, given the background that Japanese government has already announced, 5 trillion Japanese yen investment as, recent as 1 month back, as informed by Ms. Muna. And there is an aggressive, stand taken by them to increase the presence of generics to the extent of 80% from very low level of present, like 25% by September 22. And there is an enabling provision which is already created through, the SEPA agreement that India and Japan have entered into. If you refer to Article 18 and Article 54, you would find that there is an enabling provision through which the Indian generic pharmaceuticals under SEPA will receive a national interest. And at the same time, there is a substitution potential which exists. So with this kind of background, Mr. Fujikawa, I would really, want you to focus on how and what can in specific terms be done to boost the export of pharmaceutical finished products from India. And for the information of everybody who may have joined late, just would like to catch up and help you understand that Mr. Fujikawa is the CEO of Fujikawa and Company. They are a very leading trading company out of Japan. They mainly import APIs from abroad, and their annual business is close to US $47 million. They also deal in pharmaceuticals, drugs, chemicals, reagents, and medical instruments. And their business is spread across Europe, China, Korea, and India. Over to you, Mr. Fujikawa.
First of all, thank you very much for your kind introduction. It is a great honor to invite you to this event celebrating the 17th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relationship between India and Japan. I know there's a long history of collaboration between two nations, and I believe it will be expanding close relationships. So regarding the pharmaceuticals between two countries, as you said, India-Japan CEPA, I'm sure that it was came into effect in 2011, probably around 10 years ago. And before this CEPA, probably 2005 or 2006, some Indian generic manufacturers came into Japanese market, like Ranbaxy Laboratories, Zydus, Lupin, or Torrent, or Acutes. But I think I cannot say that their business is really doing well in the Japanese market. And I think it is partly because of the Japanese NHI system. As you know, Japanese health insurance system is a universal system all Japanese people entered into the system, and they pay only one part of the medicine. I mean, the price of the medicine is not a big problem. Just the quality is their main issue. So they tend to select the Japanese domestic manufactured products. And as a collaboration, if I talk with about the MRA's mutual recognition, as you know, Japan and the EU has a now MRA agreement, which was started with medical devices and expanded to APIs in 2018, probably. And the most advantage of the MRA is to save GMP compliance review. Not just harmonization of the test method or specifications, but the GMP compliance review is the most key issue. I mean, for PMDA and also for Indian manufacturers, it can be it can reduce the burden of the GMP compliance review. And also, so I hope that, I don't know when, but I hope in the near future, Japan and India concludes a MRA agreement in this pharmaceutical field. And if I talk with API testing procedure and the standards, one of the key issues is harmonize of the pharmacopoeia. I think currently Indian suppliers export their products with EP or USP specifications, because basically Indian producers are exporting globally, so all over the world, and only one part is coming to Japan. So mainly test methods should be EP or USP. But if we use product in inside Japan, of course we have to make a conformity to meet the JP specifications. So that's our company, the importers, conducting the JP test. So I hope if the pharmacopoeia, I mean JP, EP, and USP to be harmonized, it is more easy to export for your side or from your side, or could be more efficient for us. Yeah, that's my point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fujikawa. I think you raised some important points which I was also wanting to touch, given the 4 or 5 companies that are present in India from Japan, and one of them regularly exports to Japan. So I think you raised issues around MRA, you raised issues around GMP, pharmacopoeia, and we also heard our minister from Embassy of India also talk about the trust and relationship that Japanese companies need to succeed in India. With this background, I have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Deepak Sapra, who is the CEO in Dr. Reddy's Laboratory, one of the largest Indian companies, and it's a global company. Of course, they have a predominant position in India, done a great job across the world in different markets. And he is, Mr. Deepak Sapra, specifically talking, he's a management, he's a part of the management council of Dr. Reddy, and has got, while growing into the company, has worked in various roles, right? From management to marketing, sales, business development, and his portfolio covers almost major markets across the world. He has led important projects on several key organization initiatives, and personally, I've also worked, with him as well as his company on several projects. So we have a very pleasant experience of having worked with Dr. Reddy. Dr. Reddy Lab is an Indian multinational company, to be very specific, which is present across different segments, be it generic medicines or APIs or custom pharmaceutical services, biosimilars, differentiated formulations. And very recently, we found they played a pivotal role in COVID vaccine by bringing Sputnik to India. And we know that Japan has been one of their largest export destinations since 1988. In 2020, Dr. Reddy partnered with Japan's Fujifilm and Global Response Aid to produce and distribute Favipiravir, a product which is very essential in COVID-19, and acquired licensing rights for Remdesivir in almost 127 countries during the pandemic. They've had a very successful, career so far. And they also collaborated, as I said, with RDIF to bring, Sputnik vaccine in India. And I really take the pleasure of, bringing in Deepak for this, discussion. And Deepak, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jain. Thank you for the kind words. And thank you to CII, Nirja and Rajesh for inviting me. Pleasure to be sharing the stage with distinguished panelists such as Ms. Khandhar and Fujikawa-san. So very, very nice to be here. We've been working as a company with Japan for more than 20 years. Personally, I've been working with Japan and Japanese companies, interacting with them on various things for the past 7-8 years. And what really strikes me is that India and Japan are natural partners. They are natural partners in many ways, and I will try to illustrate some of these as we go ahead in the next few minutes. However, all of us got impacted because of COVID. COVID impacted us, but COVID also united us in a way that we could all feel the impact together, just like many other countries in the world. Unfortunately, Japan saw more than 7 million cases, more than 29,000 deaths. India saw more than 43 million cases, more than 500,000 deaths. Unfortunately, these numbers are still in the present continuous tense, so it's still ongoing. And it also, so while COVID did this, it also gave us an opportunity to reflect on the wide variety of things that we could do together in the community between India and Japan, especially on pharmaceuticals and healthcare. Some of the things that we have been doing and we accelerated in the course of the last couple of years is that the supply of API, intermediates, and raw materials to Japan, something which has been a core and fundamental business model for Dr. Reddy's and many other Indian companies, really increased in the past 2 years. This was a consequence of two things: of Japan wanting to have a trusted and reliable partner from a country which is trusted and reliable, which is able to understand the requirements of the Japanese regulatory system and meet the expectations of Japanese quality to supply API and intermediates to Japan. In the past 2 years, I've seen a tremendous acceleration in this journey along with many of my Japanese partners. Secondly, as Dr. Jain pointed out a little while earlier, Dr. Reddy is licensed in an innovative medication related to COVID, the world's first oral COVID antiviral, a drug called Favipiravir, for which we partnered with Fujifilm in Japan. This was a unique deal because here is an innovation that happened in Japan. We partnered with them to take this drug globally. We jointly undertook developmental efforts along with Fujifilm to undertake clinical studies in different parts of the world. And as a consequence of the entire set of efforts, tens of millions of people around the world could get positively impacted by the joint efforts between Fujifilm and Dr. Reddy's. Thirdly, something which is ongoing in the present, I'm working on a project which makes me very proud in association with one of Japan's largest pharmaceutical companies to manufacture and supply one of the leading critical care drugs to Japan, a drug that is made in India and is supplied to Japan for Japanese patients, very, very critical care therapy, which allows people at terminal stages of the disease to get benefited and have a shot at living longer. In addition to these kind of models that I spoke about, which I've been personally involved in, we've also had several other Indian companies with business models such as manufacturing in Japan, licensing from Japan, technology transfer from Japan. And I think all of this, when I look at it in totality, gives me a lot of confidence about the things that India and Japan can do together and about the possibilities that exist, which go much beyond simple buying and selling. I think the natural affinity, the partnership possibilities are also beyond buying and selling to things like co-creating, mutual recognition, co-development, bringing solutions to unmet medical needs, not just to Indian and Japanese populations, but also to global populations. I think these are some very, very important areas of collaboration. There are also some additional areas such as contract research, clinical collaborations, contract development, contract manufacturing, wherein the collaboration between Indian and Japanese companies is growing higher than the market growth rate. All of this requires a harmonization between the way India and Japan view the regulatory setup in both countries. And that is where, as Ms. Khandhar mentioned and Fujikawa-san also mentioned, the harmonization of the PMDA policies, the mutual recognition of PMDA activities with what is ongoing between the requirements for Japan and the systems and processes in India becomes something very, very important to move this collaboration forward into much more areas that we are talking about. When I want to summarize all of this, I think Japanese and Indian companies, Japanese and Indian institutions and organizations, Japanese and Indian government representatives can work together and spearhead several global healthcare initiatives, which will enhance the access and affordability to medication and to medical solutions for people both in India and in Japan. In India, clearly the natural strengths on science, chemistry, and cost can make India a very important hub for research and development, for intermediates, APIs, and formulations, for clinical trials that might need to be conducted, for providing speed, scale, and agility in manufacturing, and coupling it all with a very strong level of digital capabilities that India is building to provide meaningful healthcare solutions which operate at the cusp of chemistry, biology, and technology. Japan, on the other hand, comes in with a huge amount of technology and innovation advantage. The new product development capabilities, the whole setup for development of new products, for discovery of new compounds, coupled with quality practices, the very strong bias for compliance, very, very strong culture of continuous improvement, the practices of total quality management. All of these things come in as natural advantages from Japan. And when I put these two things together, between what India brings to the table as its strengths and what Japan brings to the table as its strengths, there can be several possibilities of collaboration. What is needed is to make sure that there is a greater alignment on the regulatory requirements, and we enable it through the right culture, the right practices, and the right ethos, which everybody here on this call and a lot of people in the community in India and Japan are very, very motivated towards doing, so that both India and Japan can work together, make a difference not only to the Indian population, not only to the Japanese population, but also to the global population as far as healthcare is concerned. Thank you so much, and back to you, Dr. Jain.
Yeah, no, thank you, Deepak. Very useful, especially the kind of collaborations you have done during COVID with Japanese companies and brought those molecules. And then now back, we will see in short time, as you said, one critical life-saving drug touching Japan. So that will be a great experience. Now, I was just reflecting that in this conversation we have had Ms. Mona talk about, the great opportunity that lies ahead the pharmaceutical industry in India to export to Japan. There is an investment that is already there. There is a push by the Japanese government to adopt generics by September 22. And we find that still it's not happening. Whereas when you look at, US, European market, Indian companies are so aggressive and they are, available across the world in such large numbers. Why are we missing a Japanese market? And if you carefully, go through the discussions that we have had with Fujikawa and Ms. Mona, they touched few key words which are very important that, when Japanese companies look at India, they look at long-term relationships. They need trust. They need reliability. Price clearly is not the issue. It was clearly brought out that price is not the issue. What we need is quality GMP. So which means when you talk about quality, obviously reliability and trust becomes important. I had the pleasure of talking to some companies in the last couple of days. There are 5 companies that I could touch base with, and I came to know about them. One of them was Isai. They have a plant in Visakhapatnam down south in Andhra Pradesh in your state, and they have been making it for their own use. And I could clearly understand from them what struggle they went. Then is Ajinomoto, and then is Omnicam. They manufacture it in India for their European subsidiary. And then Mitsubishi Fine Chemicals, they export a lot of fine chemicals from India. So when you see Japanese companies operating out of India, you can find a lot of names, but when you talk about specifically our sector, pharmaceuticals, API, the number goes very small, very small. And when we talk about the opportunity, we are very clear government has that SEPA agreement in place. Clause Article 18 and Article 54 clearly show the drive is there. What we need is, of course, when you talk about regulatory alignment, the mutual recognition agreement to get in place, that can take place in a defined timeline, although we don't have one. So, what do you think, Deepak, could be a realistic timeline for MRA to be achieved? And this will go back to Fujikawa once again. And then once these agreements are in place, pharmacopoeias are aligned, which means the regulatory framework is out. Then what will ensure more number of Indian companies actually to be exporting to Japan? Could we talk of some, specific solutions in certain timeframes that can be done to achieve it? Because what we're talking about is trust. What we're talking about is long-term relationships. What we're talking about is not price, we're talking about quality. And these things take time. So until we talk about what needs to be done in specific terms, and I think there the role of the industry associations in Japan, government, as well as industry associations in India and government becomes very critical, because you are talking about trust. And trust is something that cannot come out of a flashy statement. Powerful, a presentation that we do, oh, we can do that. My conversations with all these Japanese companies in India tells me that it should do with Indian culture, the behavior. We are very, very good in talking about good deliveries and good claims. But when the issue comes on bad news, we don't share. We just go into a shelf and we keep promising. When it's about R&D, we are very good. But when it comes to stable deliveries, when the commercial production goes high, we slip. And therefore, there is a lesser amount of trust in India, and therefore the number of companies that you see are not very high. And Fujikawa touched on a particular point that consumers in Japan would prefer a locally made product. They would not trust the Indian product. So I think while we know some of the challenges, could we talk about some specific measures that need to be undertaken. For example, creation of a task force, undertaking research to identify these specific challenges, the apprehensions, the mistrust, creating specific plans and resolving these apprehensions of Japanese people for Indians and Indian business. Could we talk more about that? Over to you, Deepak, and then to Fujikawa.
No, the price is also important, of course. Yeah, price of the Indian products is really attractive always. And if we talk about MRAs or GMPs, I can say it takes a certain time to conclude the MRAs. And the one solution is PICS, PICS. I think India is not yet participating in the PICS. But if probably just participating as an observer, I don't know, I'm not sure about. Anyway, if India can participate the PICS, I think the GMP level is considered as the same among the PICS countries. So it can be a preparation for the MRA, I think. And about the situation with the Japanese market, I'm sure that it's a really unique and demanding market, because I know that suppliers in India will meet the specifications requirement of the ICH, but Japanese customers require above ICH demand. So too much, I think, too much demanding, and Japanese patients are also demanding that they are nervous with or taking care of the not just quality, but also some physical aspects like appearance. They are really nervous, worrying about the foreign matters or the colors of the finished formulation or something like that. And so not just to meet the requirement of the specifications, but also more higher requirements is there in the Japanese market. Compared with its consumption, compared with I know that market of the United States is more bigger or larger compared with the Japanese market. And my opinion is advantages of Indian suppliers is, for example, the big capacity of the production or capability to meet the ICH guidelines, yes, and some the also price. And some disadvantage of the Indian suppliers is maybe sometimes I feel because of the merger and acquisition, the company policy can easily change, or people working there is sometimes make a job hopping and easily change their job. So to develop the one generic medicine, it takes 5-6 years. So from the viewpoint of this, the long-term relationship means that if the our partner can be easily changed, it is difficult for us to make a long-term relationship. And probably also Japan is also the same situation, but Indian API manufacturer is also sourcing your intermediates or key starting materials mainly from China. So the problem of the supply chain is a key issue. Because of the COVID, our weakness of the supply chain of the essential drugs appeared. And now, this current 2-3 years, the supply supply chain is one of the key issue. I mean, the diversification of the supply chain. So we are really expecting to the PLI scheme to avoid the over dependence on a specific country. I mean, China.
You know, we understand that. We understand.
Yeah.
So, okay, no, that was pretty useful. So, Deepak, any views that you may have, since we are almost coming to the close of our time? Could you highlight some of these solutions that we can adopt beyond regulatory requirements and beyond MRAs?
Absolutely, Dr. Jain. So I just want to share that policy is going to be useful only when it is backed up by action. And that means we need to walk the talk. As I explained, we actually are getting a critical care life-saving drug into Japan, a product that is made in India. It happened because of tremendous collaboration between the teams in India, our own teams in Japan, the partners team, to guide us about what it takes. It's not only about specifications. It's not only about technical things. It's about understanding culture, understanding the mindset, getting the transparency. I mean, for example, you spoke about timelines. The margin for timelines in some part of the world for what you commit could be days or weeks. In Japan, it could be 5 minutes. When Indians talk of dispatch dates, Japan talks of receipt dates and receipt timing. Therefore, I think what we need is more consistency in the planning process. Also understanding some of the things that are crucial to Japanese for their requirements, so such as physical aspects, packaging. Those are very, very important. In addition to that, from the behavioral side, I think sticking to what you say and creating a congruence between saying and doing, because everything that you say is taken very, very seriously by partners and collaborators in Japan. That mindset, that culture needs to prevail to the last person on the shop floor. And what will help is really creation of a mechanism which will generate more awareness, which will facilitate more interactions, and where more and more of actual projects which are successful are showcased, and then the learnings can be transmitted across. Similarly, for Japan, I think while recognition is important on the regulatory side, the recognition that India-Japan is a mutually beneficial partnership, I think that also is very, very important. Understanding of the Indian way of working, and therefore taking efforts and time to guide the Indian partners through what the expectations from the Japanese side are. This will establish understanding, this will establish trust, this will establish an appreciation for each other's context and culture, and will lead to much better and much bigger business with each other. So that's what I wanted to share, Dr. Jain.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Very useful. So now, that brings us to something, very important, that now how do we actually go ahead and do that, and what could be the role of the two governments here? So Ms. Mona, you could clearly see that the war cry is more now on, of course, the timelines by which MRA can be signed, the testing methodologies between the two countries goes, harmonizes the Japanese pharmacopoeia with Indian pharmacopoeia. In what timeline, India becomes a member of PICS and, completely follows it. While these are very important things, and I think what is important is going beyond that. The GMP is not what is written in ICH or Schedule M of Drugs and Cosmetics Act or PMDA guidelines. It's really about business, and business means that you produce the products and ship them, and people consume it in a very trustworthy manner. They rely on the quality of the product, and that is the main action point. So we believe that having talked to so many people before coming to this conference, that finally it's going to be the trust, the reliability, and knowing each other's culture, as Deepak said, appreciating that to the last man on the production floor, if this is to be successful. And if the opportunity of Japanese government, pushing almost 80% generics to be used as soon as they go off patent. So I believe that if the governments can create, sponsored programs through which we can exchange people, be it students, be it technology transfer, be it research programs, be it, during collaborations, how companies should work with each other. There are Japanese people coming to India, and there are Indian people going to Japan and working in those factories, appreciating what they do, and people also coming here and working and appreciate what Indian challenges are and how to, shorten the overall learning curve. So, I mean, some of the things that come to our mind is that, could we talk about India-Japan Technology Summit, where, the technologies could be showcased and available for licensing from Japan. Some RFP processes enabling Indian companies to participate to acquire, Japanese technologies to reduce any apprehension from Japanese companies and initiatives. Common research programs with intent to promote healthcare, R&D, building capacity, and sharing the learnings. Example could be US, as we see in US India Vaccine Development Program, which specifically identifies and funds the development of new healthcare technologies like vaccines and adjuvants. There are several other, programs to, as I said earlier, for students to be exchanged, scholarships, postdocs, trainings that could also bridge this gap, because it's a long-term solution. This won't happen overnight. And, create focus team at JICA, at GHT, to address the healthcare challenges which are focused on, Indian and specifically Japanese population. And of course, more business summits to improve contacts between companies and promote collaborations. Your views, please. Monaji.
My views. No, I mean, each of the suggestion mentioned by you are very, very relevant, and I'm sure both the countries are working on it. Several of them are being coordinated by Embassy of India as well, by a number of officers. So each of that is important. Technology summit is very important, and actually Japan has announced Osaka Technology Summit in 2025, but that is a global kind of summit. And before that, we can definitely have a bilateral technology summit, especially for healthcare. We can have a focus on healthcare and pharma and also other sectors. So that is very important. I think startup and innovation and digitalization are also very important. And we have a very robust bilateral digital partnership. So we must make good use of it. And Mr. Deepak talked about a number of things like contract manufacturing and clinical trials and other things. These are also very, very important. So I think each of this is very important, and student exchange, not only for postdoc, but also for research and development. Again, it's very crucial for a field like healthcare. So it's very important. And I think in PLI, we must try to get some Japanese investment, because Japanese investors we haven't seen them very enthusiastic for PLI schemes. We are seeing from other parts of the world, but from Japan, we yet to see them responding, probably because of COVID situation. And hopefully we should be able to see now some investment coming from Japan. That will be a good technology transfer. And some of the JICA projects can also be a good vehicle for technology transfer, the way we are seeing in transport sector. So yes, each of the suggestion is very, very useful. And along with regulatory, we should not stop on only at regulatory thing, because that is not the only hurdle or not the only solution, but a lot of B2B collaboration needed, research collaboration, medical education, again, very important. all these things, investment, again, very important. So yes, I think you have already summarized and given a blueprint for everyone, for academia, for government, for business, for research institute, for everyone.
Thank you. No, thank you. This was a very useful conversation, and something that comes to my mind is that there are 5 Japanese companies that I named that I could reach to, which are doing business. And I think it's important to understand from there what has been their success story. And if that success story can reach to many other Indian and Japanese companies, that will help them accelerate the generalization of pharmaceuticals. And at the same time, 2 cases come to my mind before we close for the day. And they are, what happened to Daiichi Ranbaxy fiasco? This is something that we must talk about more. And it's the whole purpose is to understand what went wrong, how and when, for others to learn. It's not going to be, picking faults with one or the other, but to really show that we care, that something that failed, we went into its investigation, learned out of it, and then moved forward and not try to hide it. That's one. Number 2, on the other side, we found very recently that Indian company Lupin, it actually withdrew from the Japanese market. They exited. Why? Why they exited? Why it was difficult for them not to continue? Is it only the business of making money that pulled them back? Lack of, profitability or viability, or it's something else? And I think if we continue to talk about such cases of success and failure, that could be a pivotal point on which we can build trust. We can build processes. We can build, execution on a firm basis. And therefore, we could see multiple Japanese companies succeeding, especially in the healthcare and pharma sector in India, as well as multiple Indian companies succeeding in Japan. So thank you very much for being on this panel today. Very useful discussions, and I'm very hopeful that governments as well as industry associations from both the sides will take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jain. It was really a
much.
very rewarding session. Thank you very much, especially to our 2 keynote speakers, Fujikawa-san and Mr. Sapra, for joining us. Dr. Jain, excellent moderation, and I think quite a lot of new learnings have come out. And you gave, I think your concluding remarks was really excellent in terms of providing the how to take some of these things forward, discussions forward, which we as CII will be happy to at least take some of the suggestions that you have put forward with the support of Embassy of India and the Embassy of Japan here in New Delhi. We will work together. And Ms. Khandhar, once again, thank you very much for your support in putting this together. Otherwise, if there is nothing else, maybe we have already overshot time, but I think it was a very purposeful discussion. And I would like to thank each one of I can still see almost 90 people still logged in, which went up to 120 people at one point of time. And we look forward to more such sessions. We'll be organizing these sessions every month. So next month, again, we are planning to do one more, which will keep you informed, and we look forward to your participation, which will be focusing on another sector. And I look forward to your participation there too. So thank you all, and would like to especially thank the Honda motorcycles for having supported us for this particular session. Thank you.
Thank you.
All. Thank you.
Thank you all participants. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.